And now I am moving to the learning. What is a learning? ठीक है, अभी learning के basics देख लेते हैं. Then after the learning also we will talk about moving our page towards the learning. So in our unit we need to talk about the learning also. So what is the learning? Because अभी डिटेल में algorithm जो हम डिस्कस करेंगे, गोल स्टैक प्लानिंग की, नॉन लीनियर प्लानिंग. In the next lecture we will see all these examples, and that here we are talking about what is a learning, and we will also talk about the partial ordering plan. अब तीनों के एग्जांपल्स देखेंगे, तीनों को एग्जांपल के बेसिस पे सॉल्व करेंगे नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में. फर्स्ट लेट्स डिस्कस द what is according to Herbert Salmon. Learning denotes changes in a system that enable a system to do a same task more effectively, efficiently the next time. Learning is, here we are talking about the machine learning. And author Salmon stated that machine learning is the subfield of a computer science or the subpart of the AI that gives computers the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. Right? पहले से प्रोग्रामिंग ना हो, ठीक है, और उसी के बेसिस पे लर्न करे मशीन whatever has been there in a system. In 1997, Mitchell proposed that a computer program is set to learn from experience E, or experience E क्या है, the knowledge base, with respect to the sum class of the class T and the performance of major field. If its performance at the task in T as measured by T improves with the experience easy. So the main purpose of machine learning is to study and design the algorithm that can be easily used to produce the predicates from the given data set. And besides this, the machine learning also includes the agents for sets for acting as well as to improve their future performance also. So somewhere we are talking about, और आप इसको कौन machine learning को explain कर सकता है? What is a machine learning? Machine learning definition कौन बताएगा? Or what we are expecting? Learning from the data, improving from the experience, and the application. And somewhere we have talked about the machine learning, the types of a machine learning, the supervised learning, the unsupervised learning, and the reinforcement learning also. So what is the machine learning? It is a subset of artificial intelligence that enable a computer to learn from a data to improve their performance in a specific task without explicitly programmed. That is a simple learning we are talking about. So the following tasks must be learned by an The following task must be learned by an agent. What task? To predict or decide the result state for an action, to know the values for each state, understand which state has a high or the low value, to keep a record of a relevant perceptions. So why do we require a machine learning? Machine learning क्यों require है हमें? And how we are expecting that the machine will learn from our data. So where we are talking about learning from the data, we are talking about instead of being given a set of instructions, पहले से set up instruction के algorithm नहीं है, machine learning algorithm are trained on data. वो data पे trained होती है, allowing them to identify the patterns. उसी data में से उन्हें patterns identify करने हैं और make predictions or decisions making करनी है. Then we are talking about improving with the experience. अब जो machine models हैं, machine learning models हैं, they are exposed to the more data. As we are talking about, it learn from the data. So as the machine learning models are exposed to the more data, तो उनकी परफॉर्मेंस भी इंप्रूव हो जाती है, जिससे वो और ज़्यादा एक्यूरेट हो जाती हैं. Machines become more accurate and efficient as the time moves. And if we talk about the application under the machine learning, where we used and why do we require machine learning? It we use in various fields, including the image and the speech recognition, natural language processing, recommended systems, and the fraud detections here, where we need an efficient system. So, machine learning play an important role in improving and understanding the efficiency of a human learning. First, and then the machine learning is used to discover a new things not known to any human beings, जिससे वो खुद learn कर सके. So यहाँ पर हम, if we talk about the types of machine learning, we generally talk about three types: the supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and the reinforcement learning. Supervised learning are algorithms are trained on the labeled data, input and the corresponding output to predict the outcomes. यहाँ पर कुछ known है. Unsupervised learning में algorithms learn the patterns. Algorithm खुद ही patterns learn कर रही है from the unlabeled data. Unlabeled और labeled data की अगर हम बात करें तो labeled data is the structured form of a data. Unlabeled data is the unstructured form of a data. Because in a digital, the data is divided into three types: the structured, unstructured, and the semi-structured. Without knowing the correct outcomes, right? So यहाँ पर unsupervised learning में फिर correct outcome की knowledge भी नहीं है. Reinforcement learning बात है, algorithms are learn by interacting with an environment and then receive rewards or the penalties for their actions. So how it works? First, the data should be collected, right? अगर AI system में बात करें, first the knowledge will be represented and the data will be collection will be there, or the data will be acquired. So data collection, then the model selection, then the training, then the evaluation and the deployment. And these are the 5 main steps of the machine learning. Data collection, gathering, डेटा प्रिपेयर करना, डेटा को स्टोर करना जो मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल को ट्रेन कर सके, देन मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल सेलेक्ट करना, चूज करना एक पर्टिकुलर मशीन लर्निंग एल्गोरिथम को एक पर्टिकुलर टास्क के लिए, देन ट्रेनिंग देना, फीडिंग करना डेटा को टू द एल्गोरिथम टू अलाउ इट टू लर्न द पैटर्न्स, देन इवैल्यूएशन करना, टेस्टिंग करना, टेस्टिंग द मॉडल्स परफॉर्मेंस ऑन द न्यू एंड द अनसीन डेटा आल्सो, then the deployment karna, using the trained model to make the predictions or the decisions. Right? So here we are talking about the various types of a learning that are in our syllabus. First is the rote learning. Rote learning, then induction learning. With the help of an example, we will see. First, we will talk about the rote learning. Rote learning is a learning technique that involves repeating the information until it is memorized. So it is possible on the basis of a memorization. कब तक memorization होता रहेगा? Until it is, कब तक information repeat होती जाएगी जब तक वो memorize ना हो जाए, जब तक वो याद ना हो जाए. So it is basically works. How it works? It works. You repeat the information out loud or write it down multiple times. You hear, see, and experience things over again here. And you practice daily even for a short time. So here we are talking about here in form of a machine here. So this technique mainly focus on the memorization by avoiding the inner complexity. So it becomes possible for the learners to recall the stored knowledge again and again. For example, when a learner learns a poem or a song by reciting or repeating it without knowing the actual meaning of a poem or a problem, right? So here, spaced repetition, we are talking about disadvantage. It can be repeated in the previous, but the meaning has not been known. It can lead to a short-term memory instead of a long-term recall because the meaning has not been understood. It can limit the student option, doesn't promote portioning on the thinking, and it can lead to the student losing their interest after a long time. As I can see in a lecture also. So it can help you quickly recall the information or the facts. If we are talking about repetitions, if we talk about the advantages, it can be good way for a young children to learn because we are talking about the poems and the learns. learning a sound here. We are taking an example because here we are talking about the repetitions here. Then the induction learning, learning by an example, learning by a meaning. So induction learning is carried out on the basis of a supervised learning. In this learning process, a journal rules is induced by the system from a set of observed instances here. However, the class definitions can be constructed with the help of a classical method. So, for example, here we are talking about f is a target function where x is the input and fx is the output function applied to x. Given problem, find the hypothesis of a h, such as here. So in the figure, we can see the point x and y are given in the plane so that the y equal to fx, and the task is to find the function hx that fits the point value. So here we are talking about all the in a figure. We are basically a piecewise linear h function is given, while the figure C shows more complicated h function. How this is the more complicated h function. Both the functions agree with the example point, but different with the value of a y assigned to the other x inputs here. And as shown in figure D, we have a function that apparently ignores one of the example points, but it fits others with a simple function. The true is unknown, so there are many choices for a h, but without further knowledge, we have no way to prefer B, C, or D. So here we are talking about induction learning. So induction learning की क्या definition बोलेंगे आप? What is an induction learning? Here, basically a agent or a machine learn where the learners or a method where the learners discover the rules or the patterns by observing the examples. Right? Here we are talking about learning from the examples rather than being explicitly taught them here. So how it works, learners are basically presented with the examples or the data. The learners are not presented with the repetitive information here. Then they analyze the examples to identify the patterns, relationships, and the rules. Then they formulate the hypothesis or the generalization based on their observations on the patterns, relationships, and the rules. And then they test their hypothesis by applying them to the new examples or the situations here. So what we can say that here the language learning. A child learns grammar rules by listening to and observing how words are used to the sentence, right? So यहाँ पर हम बहुत सारे examples की discuss करते हैं. Science may we observe a number of experiments and then collect data to draw their conclusions without specific or the scientific phenomena here about the about the scientific phenomena here. Then we talk about the machine learning. The algorithm learn patterns from the data to make the predictions or the classifications. As I am showing here the example, so I am also using the inductive learning. I am giving you the example here. I am presenting you some data with the help of example. Then asking you to observe the patterns and then apply the rules. Here we are also talking about the inductive learning. Another type of a learning is learning by taking an advice. This type is the easiest and the simplest way of learning. In this type of a learning, a programmer write a program to give some instructions to perform a task to a computer. Now, for simple हमने set of instructions दे दिए computer को. Once it is learned or programmed, the system will be able to do a new things. ठीक है. Also, there can be several sources for taking advice, such as the human experts, internet, etc. So here, however, these type of a learning has more necessity of inference than the rote learning, as the stored knowledge and the knowledge get transferred into an operational form, and the reliability of a knowledge sources always takes into the consideration here. So another form of a learning, explanation-based learning, where the explanation has been given. Explanation-based learning deals with an idea of a single example learning. Right? एक example लेकर चलेंगे. This type of a learning usually require a substantial number of training instances, but they are two difficulties in this. It is difficult to have such a number of training instances. Sometimes it may help us to learn certain things effectively, especially when we have enough knowledge also. So hence it is clear that the instant-based learning is more data-intensive, database-dependent, data-driven, and while here the explanation-based learning is more knowledge-intensive, or the knowledge-driven here. So here we have talked about different types